The clock is ticking, and it is ticking loud. 4 days. That is all that stands between the Denver Broncos roster as we know it and the brutal reality of NFL Cutdown Day, August 30th. Somewhere in Dove Valley right now, players are sweating through walkthroughs with their stomachs in knots, knowing that Sean Payton and this front office are about to make decisions that will end careers, crush dreams, and reshape this football team just days before the regular season kicks off. This is not a drill. This is the most stressful week of the year if you are anywhere near the bottom half of that 53-man roster, and today we are diving into exactly who should be sweating the hardest. Before we get into the carnage, let's set the ground rules. Because this list is not for the faint of heart or the obvious cuts. We are not talking about players with zero shot of making the team. We are not talking about anybody who is currently injured and hasn't had a fair chance to show what they've got. And every single name on this list has to have actually been on the 53-man roster at some point last season, whether that was for one game or all 17. These are real bubble players, guys who mattered a year ago and now have to prove it all over again in a league that does not care what you did yesterday. Let's start with a position that has Denver fans losing their minds every single week: quarterback. Specifically, quarterback 2. Bo Nix is obviously locked in as QB1, no debate there, but the backup job is turning into one of the messiest situations on this entire roster, and Jarrett Stidham is standing directly in the blast radius. Here's the truth, and it is not pretty. For the money the Broncos are paying Stidham, the tape simply has not matched the paycheck. Yes, there have been flashes. There was a genuinely encouraging performance against the Falcons where he looked sharp and in command. But then came the Green Bay game, and it was a disaster from start to finish. The offensive line in front of him looked like it forgot how to pass protect. Several players appeared to be jogging through their assignments rather than playing with any urgency. And Stidham himself finished with a 60% completion rate, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a passer rating hovering right around 79. In a vacuum, those are pedestrian preseason numbers. In the context of an $8 million cap hit and a fan base that is watching every single throw with a magnifying glass, they are damning. And the fans have spoken loudly. A poll asking what Denver should do at backup quarterback pulled in more than 3,500 votes, and the results were not close. A combined 65% of respondents said it was time to move on from Stidham, whether that means rolling with Sam Ehlinger or going out and trading for someone new entirely. That is not a slim majority. That is nearly 2 out of every 3 Broncos fans saying enough is enough. There is even a vocal contingent out there campaigning for a shocking reunion, begging the front office to bring back Drew Lock over Stidham. Now, let's pump the brakes on that one for a second. Because as fun and nostalgic as that idea sounds, it feels more like fantasy than a real football decision. But the sentiment behind it says everything you need to know about where the fan base's patience level currently sits. It is running on fumes. Even Sean Payton himself is not committing. When directly asked about the quarterback 2 competition, Payton's response was essentially that the team is still working through it and that the 3rd preseason game matters. Read between the lines on that one. If Stidham were locking this job down the way he arguably did a year ago, Payton would have said so. Instead, we are getting coach speak that signals real uncertainty behind the scenes. And there is an old football adage that applies perfectly here: if you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have none. That is precisely where this Broncos QB2 battle sits heading into the final week of the preseason. Both Stidham and Ehlinger are expected to get significant passing reps in the finale against the Vikings, and that matchup carries extra weight because they will be squaring off against Brian Flores, one of the most exotic and difficult defensive coordinators in football, even in a preseason context where he is unlikely to unveil his full bag of tricks. Expect Flores to throw a look or two that nobody on that Denver depth chart has seen all summer. Whoever handles that adversity the best may have just won the job. All right, subscribe button, we need to talk. If you are enjoying this kind of deep, honest, no-nonsense breakdown of everything happening with this football team, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and we are unbelievably close, just about 180 subscribers away from hitting that number. If you want to help us get there, and if you want more collabs with other great Broncos creators out there, subscribing is how you make that happen. It costs you nothing, and it means everything to this channel. Let's keep rolling. Moving to the defensive line, where things get a little more nuanced. Savion Jones is a name that is going to make some fans do a double take, because on the surface it feels almost sacrilegious to suggest he might not make this roster. But let's look at the tape and the numbers rather than the name recognition. Through the preseason, Jones has logged 56 total snaps and produced exactly 1 tackle, 1 pressure, 0 sacks, and 0 tackles for loss. His grades might look respectable on paper, but grades like that only tell part of the story. They give you a general sense of performance, but they miss the nitty-gritty details of what actually happens in one-on-one battles and in those individual reps. Jones has struggled to consistently shed blocks against preseason-level offensive linemen. That is a concerning sign for a player who needs to be disruptive to earn a roster spot. Here is where roster math comes into play. If the Broncos keep only 6 defensive linemen, this becomes a real problem for Jones. Zach Allen, DJ, Jones, Malcolm Roach, and Ayoma Uwazurike have all clearly locked up spots. That leaves 2 more openings, and rookie Tyler Onyedem has shown enough as a run stopper this summer to feel like a near lock for one of those final spots. That leaves 1 spot up for grabs between Savion Jones and Jordan Jackson, and right now, Jordan Jackson has simply had the better preseason. That is not a knock on Jones so much as it is a statement of fact based on what we have watched on the field. Now, if Denver decides to carry 7 defensive linemen instead of 6, this entire conversation changes, and Jones likely makes the roster with room to spare. But if they stick to 6, the numbers just are not in his favor right now. The silver lining here is that even a potential release is not necessarily the end of the road. Younger, developing players like Jones often land on the practice squad to continue growing, or they become 53-man roster elevation candidates throughout the season. This would not be a career death sentence. It would simply be a not yet rather than a not ever. Let's pivot to the backfield, because this next battle is a fascinating one between 2 very different skill sets. With J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and Jonas Griffith already considered rock-solid locks at running back, that leaves 1 final spot up for grabs, and it is coming down to a battle between Jalen McLaughlin and Tyler Beatty. This is a classic case of specialist versus specialist. Tyler Beatty brings more value as a pass protector, a skill that carries real weight in Sean Payton's offense. But here is the counterpoint. Denver already has 2 running backs in Dobbins and Griffith who can handle pass protection duties reasonably well, with Griffith in particular being an excellent blocker. So the question becomes, does the roster need a 3rd pass protection specialist at running back, or does it need a more dynamic ball carrier who can create explosive plays? The numbers so far favor McLaughlin as the more electric option. Through the preseason, he has racked up 10 carries for 39 yards, a 3.9 yards per carry average, along with a touchdown and, unfortunately, a fumble as well. Those are not eye-popping numbers, but the tape suggests a player who has genuinely earned Sean Payton's trust and carved out a role as a legitimate weapon out of the backfield. When you weigh explosive upside against a redundant blocking skill set, the edge appears to lean toward keeping McLaughlin over Beatty heading into final roster decisions. And finally, we arrive at one of the most predictable cuts on this entire list, veteran offensive lineman Matt Paradis. This one is not close. Paradis simply has not looked like himself since last season, and while some of that could be attributed to lingering injury concerns, the on-field results this preseason have been rough across the board. Fans and analysts around the league have already started buzzing that his release is not a matter of if, but when. Rewind back to the preseason opener against the Philadelphia Eagles, and Paradis was directly responsible for 3 of Denver's 5 total penalties in that game before eventually landing on injured reserve shortly afterward. That is not the kind of tape that saves a roster spot on a crowded offensive line. And make no mistake, this offensive line is crowded and talented. With a strong starting front 5 already established, and Cage Casey along with Alex Paljeski rounding out the group as clear roster locks at 6 and 7, Denver realistically only has room for about 9 total offensive linemen, not 10. So who claims those final coveted spots? Alex Forsythe appears to be the favorite to lock down the backup center role. Beyond him, names like Frank Crum and Calvin Throckmorton are all realistically viewed as better options than Paradis at this stage of his career. But the real X factor in all of this is rookie Cage Casey. He is not just a fringe roster hopeful fighting for a spot, he is a near-certain lock who is set to inherit the exact versatile swing role that Paradis used to occupy, bouncing between guard and tackle as needed. Casey's preseason performance has admittedly been up and down with flashes of real promise mixed in with rookie growing pains, and his overall grades have not been eye-popping. But there is a strong belief internally that his technique is already ahead of schedule for a rookie, and that the rest of his game will catch up with more reps and more time. All signs point toward the coaching staff preferring Casey's upside and technical foundation over anything Paradis can offer at this stage. So where does all of this leave the Broncos heading into cutdown weekend? A backup quarterback competition that remains genuinely unsettled with the season opener bearing down fast. A talented but underperforming pass rusher fighting for his roster life in a crowded defensive line room. A running back battle that could come down to explosiveness, winning out over positional redundancy. And a veteran offensive lineman who appears to be on the outside looking in as a talented rookie waits to inherit his job. 4 separate storylines, 4 separate levels of drama, and only 4 days left for all of it to play out in real time. This is exactly why the next 96 hours matter so much for this football team. Roster construction in the NFL is never about who is the most talented player in a vacuum. It is about fit, scheme, roster math, and what the coaching staff values most at each individual position group. Sean Payton and this front office have tough calls ahead of them, and however these decisions shake out, they are going to shape the identity of this Denver Broncos team as it heads into a season with real, legitimate expectations attached to it. Now here is where you come in. We want to know who you think is the biggest cut candidate on this entire roster. Drop your pick down in the comments below, and let's get a real debate going, because this community always brings the heat when it comes to breaking down this football team. And if you have made it this far into the video, you clearly love this kind of deep, honest Broncos coverage, which means it is the perfect time to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We are sitting right around 62,000 subscribers now. Unbelievably close to that milestone. And every single subscription helps us keep bringing you more collabs, more breakdowns, and more of the content you have come to expect from this channel. Before you go, do us a favor. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, because it genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more Broncos fans who need to see coverage like this. Drop a comment down below with your predictions for Cutdown Day, because we read every single one of them and love seeing this community go back and forth. And if you have not already subscribed, now is the time. We are inching closer to that next milestone, and we want you along for the ride as this Broncos season kicks into high gear. Turn on those notifications too, so you never miss a breakdown the moment news breaks. Until next time, stay locked in, keep the faith, and we will see you right back here for the next update. Mile High Salute.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.